Perfect. We're going to get started. As Eli, said there, uh I was with Company Cam, a day one on the sales side of the world employee. So I takes a while to get a software off the ground, but that's really where I got my introduction to the home service space was Company Cam, and it's been something that's changed my life, and I love it. I came from the education world. I was a high school teacher. I moved into administration where I was an athletic director, assistant principal, and made the leap over to the tech world, and I absolutely love it. And um I appreciate the opportunity to do this presentation today because it kind of combines two things that I'm passionate about, the ability to present value, present content, and then also help people win and succeed. Couple caveats here before we get going. We're talking, so Hey Pros, we help with subcontractor management. I've got like 30 minutes to do this. I'm going to be straightforward with you. I'm not going to change your business in 30 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge you guys, find one or two things in this presentation that you say, hey, that's something I can go and do in my business tomorrow. I can go and change that. This event is phenomenal, but if you think about it, you're kind of drinking out of a fire hose for 2 straight days. If you say, hey, I'm going to take everything I just learned and go implement it, kind of back to the jam story, you're probably not going to implement any of it. So, take one or two nuggets from this. The other thing, don't hesitate with questions. Please ask questions. Eli's been great in the chat, so he can kind of help me as well. But I'll try to keep an eye on questions as they come in. I want to make this as interactive as possible. With that, usually when I do a webinar, I make sure you guys know how to use the chat and the Q&A stuff. You guys have been filling that up, so I'm not going to do that here. But what we'll do a quick intro. And then we'll talk kind of current state of subcontractor management. I know some of you may use very few subs, some of you use 100% subcontractors, but we'll kind of talk about the current state. That will segue us into what I call winning formula. We'll talk a few case studies, and then if there's time, I'll be able to take some questions. I'll also share all my contact information with you as well. So, story of Hey Pros, and I'll kind of give you my story as well. So, like I said, I was with Company Cam for 7+, almost 8 years, and it was awesome. I'm guessing many of you are at least familiar with Company Cam. Probably a lot of you are using Company Cam. 8 years, 9 years, whenever that was that I started with them. We were the new kid on the block. There was hesitancy. We use Google Drive, we use Dropbox, we use text messaging. We don't need this. And so, it took a lot of time to kind of build that trust. And one thing I've kind of taken from this event is the painting community, and I'm fairly familiar with it from my days at Company Cam, but it's very close knit. And so, one thing that I want to make sure that I convey with Hey Pros is, if I can be of any assistance at all, whatever that is, don't hesitate to reach out, whether you use Hey Pros or not. Like, that doesn't matter. Our CEO, and I'll kind of tell you how he founded Hey Pros. He's the same. He comes from the painting and flooring space. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he's extremely open to helping contractors, whether or not you're, a Hey Pros customer or not. But the story of Hey Pros, so like I said, Dimitri is his name, and he was a project manager at a painting and flooring company, and had a very tough situation with a sub. Two projects that just did not go well. Workmanship wasn't good. Communication with homeowner was poor. Nothing about that job was, up to the standard that that company would have wanted from a subcontractor. That happens. I'm sure you guys have all had, that happen in some capacity, whether you use subs or not. I'm sure you've had an actual, painter that, maybe was full-time, and it just didn't go well. And the person's last name was Kabook, and that's not significant right now, but Dimitri said, I'm just not going to use that guy ever again. Well, fast forward probably, a month or so, and something going on in the office, and multiple project managers are there conversing, and Kabook gets said, and Dimitri said, what did you say? And then, they start chatting. Literally 4 project managers at this painting flooring company had used that same subcontractor, not communicated, didn't have a process to communicate that internally. and they all had the same fate. So internally, that became known as getting kabooked. And it's wild to think like, hey, why wouldn't you communicate that? Why wouldn't you tell everyone else? But if you didn't have a process, you didn't have an easy way to do that, and you're out there just trying to get the jobs that you're managing completed, you just kind of overlook it and it passes by. I don't know if that's something that resonates with any of you guys, but for Dimitri, that was when, really Hey Pros kind of was born. And it was born obviously as an idea, as all softwares are. But he said, man, there's got to be a way to, prevent myself, my company, other companies from getting kabooked. So that's the story of Hey Pros. When you think about the current state here, so thinking about the company that Dimitri was a project manager with, and the fact that, I'd be lying if I said their internal communication was great at the time. Obviously, it wasn't. Four project managers had the same fate by the same poor subcontractor. Their current state was not great. You guys are all in different places in this. Some of you are going to say, Michael, my subcontractor management couldn't be any better. It is flawless. Great. Maybe try to grab a nugget, but if not, I'm sorry, I probably don't have a ton for you. Some of you are going to say, my subcontractor management is an absolute disaster. It's a mess. It's awful. Okay. And most of you are probably going to fall somewhere in that middle ground where you're saying, I think it's pretty good. Probably could be better. So I'm just going to go high level current state. I don't know each of your individual current states, but as I'm going through this, just think about where do we fall in this spectrum here on the current state. So when you think about subcontractor management, you have a process. Sales rep goes out, they sell the job. Micah had great stuff there about making sure that your website's selling for you, those kind of things. One little caveat, and I think Micah would agree with this. When I talk to contractors, I always tell them, sell what you want to sell. Have the stuff on your website that you want to sell. I worked with a ton of roofers, and it always cracked me up when they would say, man, I hate doing 3-tab shingle jobs. I hate selling those. And then you go to their website, all they have in their gallery are 3-tab shingle jobs, and it's like, well, kind of self-explanatory there. But you have a process. You're selling jobs. How do you take that job currently, if you're using subs, and get that to subcontractors? Do you have standard operating procedures? If I was in person, I'd have a $50 or $100 bill with me right now, and I would say, okay, hey, somebody volunteer. As business owners, you would say, yeah, we've got standard operating procedures for things. Absolutely, we do. We've got a very clear path from when we sell a job to building the work order, to getting that work order into our subcontractors' hands. It's easy, it's clear, it's clean. I would say, okay, are you willing to bet $100 on that your team can tell me the exact steps that you would say go into that standard operating procedure? Very rarely would I have business owners say, yeah, my team would know exactly that. So when you think about your standard operating procedures, from that sales process to building the work order to getting the job to the subcontractor to handling change orders on the job to handling daily check-ins on the job to handling invoicing, are those things a part of some sort of process in your business? And like I said, take one nugget. The biggest thing I can tell you is, and this goes for any business, anything you're doing, you can always get better in your SOPs. When I was in the education world, I was a high school basketball and football coach, and one thing, and it's not necessarily an SOP, but your playbook essentially is an SOP. One thing that was very evident to me after, a couple years of coaching was, yeah, it's on paper, but if I don't go over it and I don't give the why behind it, it's really worthless. And so thinking about your SOPs, making sure that they can be looked at somewhere, but then also making sure that you're training to those SOPs so that your team understands, why is it important? I'm sure you have horror stories why you created some of the SOPs in the first place. And so, making sure that they know the why for it. Why are we doing documentation on every job? I'll give you a quick story here from this is a Hey Pros client, but a lot of horror stories with this and a subcontractor. Subcontractor came in day one, was super messy. Homeowner was irate. Business owner called homeowner, calmed him down, called the sub, said, hey, let's make sure we, are a little cleaner, those kind of things. that probably wasn't an SOP or an expectation set for the subcontractor up front. Day two comes around, they find some, bad flooring, I believe it was, or bad drywall that needed replaced. Sub just went ahead and went over top of it, didn't replace it. Yeah, not good. Obviously, homeowner's irate. You got to replace it, redo it all. But the real kicker was, in this case, they needed some space to, do some cutting, do some mixing, whatever it was. And they used the garage. Homeowner had a really nice Harley in the garage, moved it out, left it out, forgot to put it back, rained that night. Obviously, an expensive mistake that ultimately the contractor was on the hook for. I tell that story on this bullet point here for documentation on the job because whether you're using company cam or not, that's something you should hand off to or have your sales reps be thinking about, like, all of those kind of things. Hey, if we're going to need space to do something, if you're going to need this, you're going to need that. Let's have my sales reps be, finding that spot or talking with the homeowner to, come up with that spot, documenting it, making it very clear to where when we hand that off to the subs, they know exactly what that's going to look like. And that's where those handoffs become really important. Make sure that our work orders are detailed. I'll have some stuff at the end here that I can share with you on building out, better work orders, those kind of things, or, making your work orders a little bit meatier. Communication. This is a huge one. Just like in Dimitri's situation, they didn't have internal communication, which internal communication is huge. But that communication with the sub is extremely vital as well. When they call and have a change order, what does that currently look like in your current state? Is your project manager in their car driving job site to job site and they say, yeah, go ahead and get that done. That's no problem. We got to get the job done. Yeah, $600. Perfect. I got it. It's on the phone. They're on to their next job. Are they documenting that? Some, yeah, probably are. I'm going to guess some of you are saying, nah, probably not. We find that out at the last minute. The production piece, do you have SOPs for that? I won't dive too deep into there. And then when you think about your subs that you're using, are there any compliance issues in your current state? Do you have an easy way to track when they're, different insurances and different certifications are expiring, or if they even have those in the first place? So then when you think about these pain points here, right there, poor communication, those compliance issues, lack of accountability and visibility, budget and timeline problems, scheduling and cancellations, how much time is that costing you guys in your business? Like, what does that poor communication lead to? What do those compliance issues cost you? I'll give you one more quick story here about scheduling and cancellations. So this is actually from Dimitri's company as well. He owns again, like I said, now he runs the flooring and painting company. But 4th of July, early afternoon, and his sub texts or calls him and says, "Hey, Dimitri, I pulled my back out. Not going to be able to do the job that we have scheduled to start tomorrow, July 5th. Obviously, if you guys think about time of year, people are pretty busy in July. And, if you think about your current state, what would that look like to go ahead and find a sub on July 4th and get that job back up and running? So I'm going to pause that story there because we're talking current state. We're not talking about the winning formula, but I just want you to think about that. So Dimitri had that actually happen. He was driving either to or from a barbecue. He said, sub reaches out, says, I can't do the job on July 5th. I'm sure some of you just kind of almost feel the uncertainty and uneasiness of that story right there, or the frustration of that. And so I'll finish that story here when we get to the winning formula. So when you think about the current state, what do, those pain points, what do they cost you? What does that one mistake where the subcontractor didn't know exactly, what they were supposed to do, or the subcontractor did something incorrectly because the work order wasn't clear, what does that cost you? I think back to my concrete coating days. When I was with Company Cam, I worked with quite a few of the coating companies and franchises out there. And one of my clients, I probably have the picture still saved somewhere. but they did such an amazing job of, showing exactly what was supposed to get coded and what was not supposed to get coded. They would mark that up. They would get that out to their crews or their subs. What do those mistakes, when you have those, what do those cost you? Another big one is change orders. What, like I gave that example earlier of the call, I'm in my car. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. What does that change order not getting documented? What does that cost you? Or how many times are you potentially paying for a change order that maybe didn't get complete there with paying for work not completed? Or, maybe they're charging for change orders that, you know, you're a month later and you're like, yeah, it seems like I did it. And you want to keep the subs happy, so you just go ahead and pay it. Like, what are those things costing your business in your current state? Like I said, some of you maybe nothing is perfect. Some of you are like, yeah, that's a little bit unsettling. What does an unhappy client cost you? I can't put a number on that. Change orders, we can actually go and find a number. Mistakes, if I have to go redo something, we can actually find a hard cost for doing those things. What's that unhappy client cost you? What does that one bad Google review cost you? Because, whatever it was with your subcontractor, maybe it was your fault, maybe it was the sub's fault. Doesn't matter whose fault it was. Your client is unhappy and they leave a bad Google review. They talk about you in the Facebook local group, whatever it is. Those unhappy clients cost your business a lot. And if because of your subcontractor management, you even have one unhappy client, you've lost money. And then another big one is just the loss of subs. It's easy for me to say because I'm not a painting contractor. I'm not a roofing contractor. Those are two spaces that use subcontractors frequently. But there's always three sides to every story. There's the contractor side of the story, there's the subs side of the story, and then there's really that actual side of the story, as the saying goes. Your expectations probably lead a sub to leave. That's totally fine. That's good, actually. If the sub doesn't want to, do the things the way that you want them or need them done, they're not the sub that you want anyway. But there's also probably great subs out there that, because you're disorganized or because of one bad situation of, man, that work order was terrible that you gave me, or you've got me jumping all around job to job because of poor scheduling, those kind of things lead to lost subs. And obviously that costs your business a ton of money because you're now trying to find new ones. You're, getting them up to speed. All of those things cost money. Micah, I'm going to plug that as well. Micah mentioned, making sure that you're always hiring. That's a big one. Make sure you are always doing that. I'll show some stuff here in just a second as well. And then the final one is frustrated staff. What's your internal staff? What's their frustration level from your subcontractor management? And it may be low. And you also have to think big picture here, not just you as the owner. And this was a huge one for me with Company Cam. You would be amazed how many office rock stars, I call them office rock stars, they're the ones that keep businesses afloat, were absolutely frustrated beyond belief with documentation because they're the ones that dealt with it firsthand. Are your office staff, are your project managers, is there anyone in your company that's frustrated because of your current state? Assuming that there's one thing that you say, hey, it's not as doom and gloom, because I kind of painted the current state of like you would be potentially doing all of those things poorly. Like, I know you're not doing all of those things poorly, but if there's one thing where you say, hey, I'm going to be able to get better at this one area, hopefully you can figure that out here from the winning formula. So before you even get started dealing with the subs, you've got to kind of build that strong foundation of, building strong foundation or network of subs. And so, the first bullet point right there, develop a system to find and vet subs. I do have a free download for you that I'll share with you here at the end that gives you some ideas on how to find and develop, vet your subs, making sure that you're continually adding to your network of subs. And then when you do find them and you vet them, making sure that the onboarding is extremely clear, that the expectations are, they're up front. This is how we take care of our clients. When they come to XYZ Painting, this is the experience that we give. This is the craftsmanship that we provide. making sure your subs are able to do that. They know that there's no surprises. And then establish communication protocols and accountability measures. That's kind of that perfect story that I talked about there with Dimitri and his team. They had no communication protocols internally, probably didn't have great ones externally at the time. And their accountability measures, they didn't have that like Uber style ratings for their subs. They didn't know. And as an owner, I'm sure you're saying to yourself, I would absolutely be furious if we use the same sub over and over again if they're doing a terrible job. And that's kind of where that current state goes into thinking about what do we have for, protection against, using the same sub if they're poor. So I built that foundation, leverage technology for efficiency when doing this. Now, obviously I'm with Hey Pros. I'm not here to be an infomercial. There's multiple ways to skin the cat. My 7+ years at Company Cam, I would always say, hey, there's lots of vehicles that can get you from point A to point B. Company Cam was one of those. In this case, Hey Pros is one of those. I'm not saying you have to use Hey Pros, but just these are some things to think about when it comes to your business here. So number one, compliance tracking. This should kind of be that baseline always running in the background, making sure you have some way to automate your compliance tracking. Make sure you're using tools to ensure your subs have insurance, licensing, safety requirements, making sure that you're not letting those lapse in terms of getting the documentation, helping your subs stay on top of not letting their different, insurances, licenses, etc. lapse. Your level of safety requirement probably depends on state. Your level of how much safety you want to be doing with your company, depends on your company, but making sure you can automate that. Because most companies, what I've found, most companies do a pretty darn good job up front of making sure that their subs are in compliance. Where they do drop the ball is they rely solely on their subs to get them up to date documentation, and oftentimes that's where the issue runs into is it lapses, it's not tracked, it's not automated, and then here you are using a sub that doesn't have insurance or license or whatever it would be. Simplify scheduling, leverage technology to do that. And when I say leverage technology, I'm saying get rid of texting and emailing one sub at a time. My favorite question, and if you do this, like, it's okay, you're not in the minority, you're in the majority if you're still texting or emailing one sub at a time. My favorite question to ask though is, how long do you wait to hear back from that sub before you go down to the next sub on your list? And that's a question that when you ponder that and you say, well, what is the sweet spot? How long should I wait before I text or email the next sub to see I haven't heard back from sub crew A? How long do I wait to go to sub crew B? So simplify your scheduling, use technology to help you get in front of multiple subs in real time so that you're able to get that done in real time. So back to the 4th of July story, Dimitri said he's driving to or from, he's in his car, and sub cancels. Job's supposed to start on the 5th. I don't know if it was a tough homeowner or what it was, but he basically said we have to start this job on the 5th. And so he was able to, using Hey Pros, go in and duplicate the work order that he had sent to the previous sub. He added urgent to the title, and he sent it out to his network of subs. Within 5 minutes, while driving his car, he had 2 subs respond back saying that they would be available to take that job if it was offered to them. Pretty powerful stuff. 5 minutes, 4th of July, to start the next day. Like, that's pretty good. And when you think about it, it's like, I would even be stressing on how do I get this figured out? And so, simplifying your scheduling to where you're able to get subs in real time. So, that's what Hey Pros can do for you. I don't care if you're using some other system to do that. Just make sure you're, able to be efficient with your scheduling. The only thing I would caveat there is Hey Pros, while it's super easy to use, I don't advocate using it while you're driving like Dimitri did. So pull over and get that figured out. Absolutely, very powerful there. Clear and detailed work orders. Don't leave anything to the subcontractor to figure out on their own. Make sure you're using technology to do this. Company Cam. I'm not with Company Cam anymore. It's always going to be in my blood though. It does change your life as a contractor. You should be using that from a, sales standpoint and getting that over to your subcontractor. If you do use Hey Pros, there's a direct integration where you can actually share photos straight to the subcontractor, and they don't need a Company Cam account of their their own, which is really great. When I talk to contractors all the time, that was one of their big questions. How do I get my subs photos and I don't want to pay for them and they don't want to pay for it? Make sure you have real-time communication that's centralized on your project manager's phones is tough. Like, you need to be able to go in and see what happened on jobs, making sure that you know exactly what's happening at all times. That real-time communication is super powerful. And then digital invoicing, making sure that your invoices are done digitally and can be submitted as soon as a job is completed. Digital invoicing and I get my subs email me their invoices. Those are two totally different things. If they're able to email as soon as the job is completed, that's great. But if you're ever waiting on a invoice from a sub, any of those kind of things, definitely would encourage you to look into some way that your subs are able to handle all of the invoicing in real time. Making sure that instead of calling and saying, hey, I've got to redo this or we've got to do this for a change order, having that done through some sort of trackable piece of technology to where they can actually go in, your project manager can approve it in real time, and then at the end of the job, there's no question what that change order was for. You get it off to your finance team, those kind of things. Last slide here for winning formula, just proactive problem solving. Using data and reporting to track performance, catch issues early, having something like whatever that is. I use the Uber-like rating system. HeyPros has a Uber-like rating system that kind of you can go in and rate your subs. They don't see it, but you see it internally so that you're not using subs that are having issues, or maybe if a sub that you really like has the same problem, you can go and coach them on that. And then, like I said, that track and manage change orders as they occur. That's a super big one. So I'm pretty close to time, and the educator in me likes to stay on time. I'm sure Eli will appreciate that. So I'm going to go through just a couple slides here to kind of just show you some interface of HeyPros. I'm going to just speed through these, but dispatch and manage your subcontractors like never before. You're able to send out work orders to multiple subs at one time. You can send it out to one if you'd prefer, however you want to do it, but you can send it out. We've got multiple ways that you can do that. I don't want to get into the weeds there. This is just, you can kind of read through this real quickly. This is more just kind of showing you the interface. One big thing with HeyPros is your subs do not have to have an account. They just they technically wouldn't have to download the app, but they should download the app. Now they're able to take all their photos, handle all their communication in one centralized location. If they take photos in the HeyPros app, those photos automatically do push into your company cam account without having to have them as a paid user, and they don't have to have company cam. So that's a huge win right there. So here's just one more slide. Post your open work orders. You can review. So like the 4th of July story, you can review who says they can handle that job at the price and date, and you can go and award that job, and then you handle the whole process throughout. So I'm going to jump really quickly through a few slides or things here just to kind of show you this guide. So this is the guide that I was talking about, Ultimate Guide to Finding and Vetting Subs. It's got a ton of stuff here. I'm not going to go through it all, but I'm just going to go kind of through, here's finding new subs. Here's some ideas. You got tool belt and some of those things. Onboarding, you click on the different things. It takes you to all of this stuff. So just a ton of things there for, being able to find your subs, keep your subs, etc. If you want that guide, I would encourage you to go to heypros.com/dripjobs. We can also get you a demo of HeyPros, but really I would encourage you strongly to go and get that guide. But heypros.com/dripjobs, it's right here. Just click free guide. And then let's see here. Here's the link for that as well. So if you want to just skip straight to the link, it's freeguide.hey-pros.com/1/ So nice little 5-step guide. Talking with Dimitri yesterday, he has a whole bunch more that he's going to add to that guide. It's actually dynamic. So he's going to be adding a whole bunch to that guide here in the next quarter or so. So that'll be great as well. So I have 1 minute under the deadline here. So I got it done. I will hang out in chat for a while if you have questions, if there's any questions that I missed while I was going. The other thing I would encourage is my email is just michael@heypros.com. Dimitri's is dimitri@heypros.com. Don't hesitate to reach out with questions on, how Dimitri's company handles subs, does certain things with subs. If you have questions for me, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help. We want to help you grow and scale your business. Not concerned if you're a client or not. If you have questions on subcontractors, if you have questions on anything business related, I'm happy to help. Dimitri would be more than happy to help as well. So that's what I've got. If there's questions, though, I'm happy to answer those now. I'll also stay in the chat, like I said, and answer as well.